In the days following my explosive confrontation with Julia, I found myself retreating into a shell of isolation. I had unleashed my fury upon her, exposing her betrayal to our family and friends. But instead of feeling liberated, I felt trapped in a cycle of anger. The satisfaction I had initially experienced began to wane, leaving behind a hollow ache that gnawed at my insides. I thought that by making her suffer, I would find some semblance of justice, but all I ended up doing was pushing away the people I once held dear. I stopped answering calls from friends who wanted to check in, dismissing their concern as pity. I didn't want their sympathy. I wanted them to understand my pain, to rally behind me as I tore down the facade of our family life. But as I isolated myself, I realized that I was also isolating Alex. He had sensed the tension, the unspoken words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. I could see the worry in his eyes, the way he would glance between Julia and me, trying to gauge the mood. It broke my heart to think that my actions were affecting him, yet I felt powerless to change the course I had set. Every day, I would sit in silence, replaying the events in my mind, reliving the moment I discovered the truth. I was consumed by thoughts of revenge, fixated on the idea that Julia deserved to feel the weight of her actions. But the longer I held on to that anger, the more it consumed me. I felt like a ghost in my own home, haunting the memories of happier times while being unable to escape the reality of our shattered lives. I began to wonder if my quest for revenge was worth the emotional toll. As the days turned into weeks, I couldn't ignore the emotional fallout from my decisions. My initial satisfaction had morphed into a bitter realization. Revenge is a double-edged sword. I had thought that by exposing Julia, I would reclaim my power, but instead, I felt like I had lost control over my own life. The anger that had fueled me began to feel like a heavy burden, one that I carried with me every waking moment. I watched as Julia struggled to cope with the fallout from our confrontation. She was no longer the vibrant woman I had married. She was a shadow of her former self, weighed down by shame and regret. Part of me reveled in her suffering, but another part felt an unexpected pang of guilt. I had wanted her to feel pain, but I hadn't anticipated how it would affect our son. Alex had become increasingly withdrawn, his laughter replaced by silence. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the way he hesitated to ask questions about what had happened between us. I began to question whether my actions were truly justified. Was I really seeking justice, or was I simply indulging in a desire for vengeance? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my quest for revenge had come at a significant cost. Our family was unraveling, and I was at the center of the storm. I had thought that by exposing Julia, I would find closure, but instead, I found myself trapped in a cycle of anger and regret. I wanted to heal, but how could I move forward when I was still clinging to the past? In the quiet moments of reflection, I began to understand that healing would require more than just time. It would require a conscious decision to let go of the anger that had consumed me. I realized that if I wanted to rebuild my relationship with Alex, and even find a way to coexist with Julia, I had to confront my feelings head-on. The thought of forgiveness seemed impossible at first, but I knew that holding on to my anger would only perpetuate the cycle of pain. I started by seeking therapy, a step I had resisted for far too long. Sitting across from a therapist, I began to unpack the layers of my emotions. I shared my story, the betrayal, the anger, the desire for revenge, and listened as she guided me through the process of healing. It was uncomfortable, facing the truth about my choices and the impact they had on my family. But with each session, I felt a weight begin to lift. I learned that forgiveness didn't mean condoning Julia's actions. It meant freeing myself from the shackles of my own bitterness. As I began to let go of the anger, I also started to reconnect with Alex. I made a conscious effort to spend time with him, to engage in activities that brought us joy. We played soccer in the backyard, shared stories over dinner, and slowly, I could see the light returning to his eyes. I realized that I needed to be present for him, to show him that despite the chaos, our love as a family could endure. Ultimately, I understood that healing would be a journey, not a destination. I was learning to navigate the complexities of forgiveness while still grappling with the pain of betrayal. But I was determined to forge a new path forward, one that would allow me to reclaim my life and redefine my relationship with Julia and Alex. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face the challenges ahead, embracing the possibility of healing and growth.